days. We're going to spend time to learn Targum Sheni. There's the regular Targum on Megillah Esther, and then in the back there's Targum Sheni. And Eretz Yisrael, I actually saw it in modern in Hebrew. It's in only Aramaic, but it's all midrashim. It's all midrashim. Information that you never find anyplace else about the Megillah. I spent one poem in Eretz Yisrael. It's managed to grab hold of one Chumash with the head in Hebrew. It's fascinating stuff. I don't know if I don't call you wrong.
Amen.
Who writes Targum Sheni?
Who wrote the Targum Sheni?
Who wrote Targum Rishon? No. It's not Targum Uncles. It's also a lot of the drashim are in this Targum, in the regular Targum. The Targum Sheni is like a whole different dimension of midrash.
Where does Shvi in the Megillah begin?
Yeah, the Megillahs have different chapter numbers for them.
Right. Are there 10 in Esther?
What?
There's 10. There's 10 Parsha.
Yeah. I have some yeah, that's Shmos. But the Megillah is over here in the Shmos Targum. Targum Sheni. Ah, gewalt. Here's a general question about Sefer Vayikra and all the Kabbalahs. A couple of basic questions. The Gemara says when we start teaching. Here we go. Okay, we've been waiting for you. That when you start teaching children, you should start teaching them Sefer Vayikra. But Tahar and V'yasku b'Tahar. Let the children who are still Tahar, let them come and preoccupy themselves with things that bring Tahara, carbonates which have to be Tahar. So number one is we don't follow it. Still,
They actually start with Vayikra.
They start with Vayikra. And it gives a different perspective to a child, recognizing that there's all carbonates for different functions and different purposes of Klal Yisrael. And for different averos, there are different carbonates which are there to help Machil Kaparas. So children learn, if they learn Vayikra, they learn at a very young age that Hashem wants us to do tshuva. So he gives us the carbonates, the Beis Hamikdash, so that we should learn, should know that Hashem wants to be Mechaber for Klal Yisrael.
What about like Hashem? What about like knowing who Hashem is first? Like, are you jumping in upon us without like?
Well, children believe that Hashem exists, so it's they don't need to know, all the stories of the first part of the Chumash because you don't understand them anyway. My celebration is all Seder Torah. I tell children that Hashem created the world in 6 days. Hashem didn't create the world in 6 days. But if they tell children that Hashem is above and beyond time, children have difficulty grasping that. Probably more difficulty grasping that than the carbonus. So the carbonus is an animal. There's this animal, that animal, this carbon for this aver.
Why did they skip Sefer Shemais?
Hmm?
Why would they skip Sefer Shemais?
No, because Sefer Shemais you already have to have it. We say the history of Sefer Bereshis, but the instructions are let those children who are Torah come and be Isaac with the HaRav. Let them come and deal with things that talk about the Kedusha and Tahara of Klal Yisrael rather than the stories, which are not supposed to be learned as stories. But when children learn them as Bible stories, that's what children get stuck with. They're stuck with whatever the Rebbe taught them was the story. So there's all these arguments about the Seder Chinuch. There's a beautiful story I read in an old Sefer. An old Sefer. It was probably printed around World War One, maybe a little bit before World War One. That's old, right?
Compared to me.
Yeah. It was a collection of stories about Menachem and Masel Chernobyl Magid. Some of the stories I had heard before firsthand, but there were a lot of the stories that were fascinating stories. It's not likely somebody made them up, but if they made them up, they really did a good job. So, they stand as important. One of the stories was told, and that is the name of the book was a Yiddish book. It was the Rebbe's Teuf. That was the name of the Sefer. The Rebbe in the Rebbe's courtyard, in the Rebbe's court. He said there was a young man who became acquainted with the early generations of Chassidus, and he became a chassid of the Chernobyl Magid. And his father-in-law was not very happy about it. He says he's supporting me, sitting and learning, and all of a sudden he goes running off to Yantiv to the Rebbe, going to run of Shabbos, and he runs of Shabbos to run off to the Rebbe. Whenever he has a question, he's running off to the Rebbe. And he says, listen, I'm supporting you not to go running off to sit and have a good time. I'm supporting you. You should sit and learn Torah. So he says, well, what can I tell you? He said, you've never been there. It's hard for me to describe the greatness of the Rebbe. So if he finally convinced his father-in-law, listen, before, if you go with me, if you decide that you don't need a Rebbe, I'll stop going. So they went. They went and he spent Shabbos with the Rebbe. He said, beautiful, the Tishin, the davening, the Nigunim. The Rebbe's had beautiful Torah. Okay. Very nice. What's the Shabbos? The father-in-law goes into the Rebbe. Says, Rebbe, he says, very nice. I enjoyed Shabbos. It was very beautiful. He says, but I'm supporting my son-in-law, so you should sit learning. You're taking him away from learning. It's very nice that he comes and has a good time here. So he says, like, why does a young man like that need a Rebbe for? Maybe an older person who doesn't have, people who don't know how to learn, or people already too tired to learn, or whatever. He says, I understand why they're here. He says, but my son's a young man. He's supposed to be sitting and learning. Great challenge, right? So the Rebbe said, let me tell you. He says, tell you a story. Times of Beis Hamikdash, there was a Jew who was a fairly eloquent Jew, but one Shabbos did by Shegig, his Machal Shabbos. He did something the Chil Shabbos. He caught it afterwards, so he told people, what should he do? He says, so what you do, you have to bring Korban Chatos. He did a very Machal Shabbos, you have to bring Korban. So he says, what do you do? Says, well, you go, you start going, and you ask people a direction. So what he does is that every place he stops, it says which the way the Beis Hamikdash. This is actually from the Gemara. People, there were no signposts. There were no signposts to the Beis Hamikdash. You had to ask.
It's interesting for the Ur Mikla, they had signs.
Yeah, Ur Mikla had signs, but not to Yerushalayim. B'davka. Why? Because this way people would ask, and people would ask him, I said, why are you going to the Rebbe? Yes. You had to bring karmachatos. Why did you bring karmachatos? What did you do? Yeah.
That's too many questions.
Yeah, so that's just, you can't just start a conversation without a dozen questions. So by the time he got to Yerushalayim, he was already, had already.
Iceman.
Yeah, he was already halfway. Okay, so then he says, okay, then they take him up to the Beis Hamikdash. He had to buy a calf, and they asked him, why are you buying a calf? He says, and every stop on the way up to the Beis Hamikdash, there were 7 stops. They stopped the person, why are you bringing a carbon? He says, you didn't have air, we should put you on the Mizbeach. Why would we have to kill an animal for you? So by the time you come up to the Beis Hamikdash, the HaRav, he's already pretty worn out. And he looks around, he says, okay, where's the Kohen Gadol? He says, oh, you see that young man over there with the fancy clothing? That's the Kohen Gadol. He says, that the young man's a Kohen Gadol? He says, I'm twice his age. That young man.
He's a big lump.
So he went over to him. He said, you're the Kohen Gadol? He said, yes. He says, I don't understand. Why are you the Kohen Gadol? What makes this so special? I brought this carbon. What I did, I was the carbon shegig. I did something on Shabbos. It was my shegig. I have to win carbon. So the Kohen Gadol puts his hand on the Urim V'Tumim, and he just starts. He says, "Let me tell you a story." See, there once was a farmer, fairly wealthy farmer, who had fields and orchards and workers working for him. One day he went out to the field and he saw one of his workers was a very pretty young lady. And his Zachor started, took hold of him. And then there was another incident where there was this farmer had a chance to sell merchandise fruit produce that was already half rotten, but he sold it for a good price. He really, and the farmer said, "Stop, Rebbe, stop!" Right, and the father-in-law looks at the Chernobyl Mag and says, "Rebbe, stop! I know why you need a Rebbe." So it's one of those. It's a story that's hard to make up. So we come to these Parshas, and even when we come to the Megillas Esther, and we have a tendency to just happen to be that these are the things that the Parsha is talking about. There's different things for a reason why we need korbanos. But we very rarely stop to say, how's it telling me about myself? Because the purpose of the korbanos, even though that we can't bring the carbon, but the process of tshuva that's supposed to go along with it, which is a person to acknowledge that they've made wrong choices in life, and we fall into our Yetzer Hara. We give in to being maybe not always as honest as we should be. So we have a tendency to try and skip by them, not pay attention to them. And this is one of the purposes of Sefer Vayikra is how does a child read these? How does a child read these Parshas? Oh, this type of Shegeg Shabbos and mistaken Avodah Zarah and mistaken Gila Rayas. Shifcha Charufa, etc. Hashem Gzelos, Hashem Ne'ilas, Nazirus. Asher Me'ilus, a person's moral behegdish. Decided that he wasn't careful with his Chumash and with his Maestros. And to learn that every part of our life has an accountability. We have to think about how are we reacting to this? What part do we see ourselves in? Do we see where our own weaknesses stand out before us? And if there be a Beis Hamikdash, this is like stopping. There's no signpost. Read the Torah, see what the purpose of the carbon is. Ask ourselves, are we chayav a carbon? And if we're not chayav a carbon mamish, we're chayav at least to do tshuva for things that would bring us to a carbon. Let alone that we get to Parshas Kedoshim, which is we almost have more mitzvahs than almost any other parsha in the Torah. It demand from us a tremendous amount of accountability for what we do and how we deal with being Adam l'Magam, being Adam l'Chaveri. Sefer Vayikra is an extremely powerful presentation of what looking at the things that make it that cause us to make mistakes. So we'll get a little bit later, we'll get to the carbon Ada, we'll get where the whole community was nichshel and Avodah Zarah, Shogeg, or the Sanhedrin, or the Zachor Mamre, right? To us, it would seem so unlikely that we would have an entire tzibur who listened to the Sanhedrin and did Avodah Zarah, Shogeg. By mistake. There's all people, you can do this, and then if I realize after that it was Avodah Zarah.
Was there any time that Sanhedrin made a mistake?
There's a carbon for it. There's a whole Parsha and a Torah for it.
But did that ever happen?
I don't know. I haven't been around that long.
Rabbi, wasn't everybody part of our church except Mordecai?
Mm-hmm.
He was the last one to Sanhedrin, which means the rest of the Sanhedrin is Shogeg.
The Targum says it's both in Targum and Targum Sheni. So the Gemara in Yud in Megillah, the Bnei Yisrael. Why would they ask Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Why was that door five clear? Why was the door of Mordecai and Esther? Why was it Gzera? If it was a Gzera, the would happen first in Shemayim. Haman couldn't have made a Gzera. He couldn't have swung enough of the politics to undo, unless it was already Minish Shemayim. So there was already Minish Shemayim. All Haman did was sort of like the shliach, right? The one to be able to force it. And that's what Gemara says. What Haman and Achashverosh accomplished when Haman took his ring off and handed it to Haman, the Chaisim, right? Brought Klal Yisrael to a greater tshuva than 24 Nevi'im. Because all of a sudden Klal Yisrael did tshuva, and Kimlo Aleim Balzarim, they ended up doing tshuva, Kabul Torah all over again, right? Which had not happened in all the 400 years of the first Beis Hamikdash. Klal Yisrael kept on slipping more and more. They got caught up in Avodah Zarah, right? It was so the Gzera was already Minish Shemayim. So you would say, how's it possible that Klal Yisrael had Nevi'im? And Nevi'im telling them, Yirmiyahu, Yechezkel, and not Yechezkel was afterwards. Yirmiyahu, Yeshaya, Shmuel, it's not starting from Shmuel, but all the way to the Shoftim, they were all Nevi'im. So we had Navi today, would we not listen to them? Yeah. And we would answer, well, you got to prove to me that he's dead. Yeah, come on. Can't be kidding you. Somebody's not going to get up and say, every Jew, pack your bags to go to Yerushalayim, and we would listen to him.
And they killed Zachor. They killed Zachor.
Yeah, they killed Zachor for having said it.
But Daniel was still alive.
Yeah.
Daniel was in house.
Yeah. And Mordecai was still in the first place in Mikdash. So we'd have to stop and ask ourselves, like, would we be ready to listen any more than they did? Or would we say, listen, we just bought a new house in Tom's River. How can you can't, we can't tell people leave, it's come on, we have all the yeshivas and Beit Yaakovs and kosher restaurants and Eretz Yisrael, it's not, and doesn't match Eretz Yisrael almost any place to the conveniences that we have here. Yeah, it's okay. It's better than it used to be. The time when going to Eretz Yisrael was Mesiras Nefesh. Okay? Yeah, and only the real tough people made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. But then now, it's even now it's not so easy. We were talking to one of our friends who was in Eretz Yisrael. He said it's very difficult times in Eretz Yisrael today. The economy is in shatters, and
because of the war.
Yeah, because of the war and the tragedies and the. So we would say, okay, so what should we be doing? We'll say another Kaput Tehillim. Yeah, we'll clapocate a little bit more. Are we at the point where we're taking achrayus for the pain and struggle and Klal Yisrael? It's their struggle, it's our struggle, and we're still relying on NYPD to protect us instead of Hashem. So for that, when you tell that to children, that a person doesn't obey, he has to do tshuva. It's a requirement, has to do tshuva. Children get it. They take it face value. We already have all our cheshbonos that get in the way. Ba'arayim, Megillas Esther is all about that the Sanhedrin. So the Gemara says, how they arrive at Avodah Zarah? Right? Says, no, they did it. They only did it out of fear. They did it they didn't mean it. They pretended. But they're pretending that they do it over the Avodah Zarah. For that, the Gemara says that's why they were chayv clear. That's why that generation had the gzera.
It's because the children saw them doing it, and therefore the children would, but that's the way to do it.
Well, the only ones who the way that Mordecai got Chazu Tshuva was through the children.
So the children were,
Because he knew that the children would cry out to Hashem with all of their hearts.
so the children didn't know about this, only the adults.
Yeah, only the adults. Yeah, the only adults went to the party of Achashverosh and pretended. Yeah, there was an age limit. Yeah.
21 to drink.
Yeah.
Can't come in.
Mordecai had any kids?
Who?
Mordecai.
Not that I know of. Somebody asked me that question. Did Mordecai have any children? I don't know.
Was he even married?
He was married to Esther.
Esther.
Yeah, but
So I don't know if and they were married to her for a long time.
right, but she only had that rubbish.
But afterwards, yeah. So not as far as I don't know if she had children with Mordecai. Mordecai was an uncle, and the Targum says that Esther was conceived after she was conceived, her father died, and when she was born, her mother died. So Mordecai took her as an infant, raised her, and then she got old enough. He married her.
He must have been very old.
Mordecai must have been old. Mordecai came with the Yekonyo.
So it must have been the 80s when he married Esther.
Yeah, and by the time the whole Megillah took place, Esther was, I think, 60 years old, or 60 years plus. Which makes the whole story very difficult. The Achashverosh Shafali is looking for a kol nara b'sula. First murder, he gets the 60-year-old green
Wife.
Green wife, yeah.
She was already married.
Yeah. But already married, right? Mordechai was hiding her because he knew that the shluchim of Achashverosh were ruthless.
Even at that age, Esther was a beauty.
It's a chain. They didn't care. They didn't know it's a chain. Like I said, she was rock rocker. So she knows a chain. Right? The bunch don't stand chain. Yeah. So we look at both of them again. We look at the Sefer Vayikra, from understanding that the Rebbeinu was giving us all of the push to take a look, pull away the Esther upon him, peel away the surface, and what will we see? We'll see that we're heading towards the closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're heading into we can say, do we hear that the army is doing the job of being Shluchei Hashem? Or do we hear how well militarily they're planning, they're strategically doing their process? Yeah. Is it done for Nakama? Or is it because it's Mechemes Mitzvah?
It's done because if you don't do it, they're going to come over and kill you.
Good. So that's that's good.
Before you kill me.
Yeah, good. That makes a lot of sense. Is it because Hashem wants us to do that?
I guess it's Milchemes Mitzvah. If it's I kill you before you kill me, it's Milchemes Mitzvah.
It is a mitzvah itself for protection. You're correct. But is that the motto of the army? It is definitely the motto of the soldiers that they're doing because they feel that there's protecting Klal Yisrael.
I have to do this.
Yeah, they're protecting Klal Yisrael. Shem Shemayim, absolutely Shem Shemayim. But that dedication is not what is reported. Netanyahu didn't tell Biden, you got to know Eretz Yisrael is ours because Hashem gave it to us. What are you telling us that we should make compromises with those who want to destroy us? This is our land that we got it because the Torah gave it to us. Hashem gave it to us.
I apologize.
I don't apologize. I don't have to apologize for Gaza. Gaza is part of Eretz Yisrael.
Fear said, I have to kill you because you're going to kill me.
That's only one piece of motivation, right?
Politicians aren't saying that though.
Politicians and the military leaders not saying that. Maybe they believe it. Maybe I don't know if they believe it. They're definitely not saying it. And so, therefore, when politicians, I had a woman coming into my office that she goes to an acupuncturist, Chinese, and while this lady's giving her acupuncture, she says, "You have to know I'm pro-Palestinian. I've researched it, and I know that the Jews have stolen the land from the Arabs, and what they're doing is wrong, and I'm probably to protect the poor Palestinians." So she asked me, should she go back to this acupuncture? I said, absolutely not, because their motto is to kill the Jews. So you have somebody who wants to kill Jews. You're allowing them to stick needles into you.
It's fine.
Yeah.
She even asked.
Huh?
And she's asking.
This woman was asking. Oh.
It's like common sense.
Yeah. So I told her, absolutely not. You should not go back to this acupuncturist. Because it's the same reason why you're not allowed to go to a non-Jewish barber.
He might cut you.
Yeah, because a barber can cut his barber. If he's got a razor in his hand, just a minor slip. Oh, sorry, oops.
You're not allowed to go to that.
No.
Does that
No.
apply when they use razors these days?
What?
Does that apply nowadays when they're not holding a razor? They only use
There's a mirror regimen.
A non-Jewish barber will have a razor. The Jewish barbers don't have them because they don't need it.
Even Jewish barbers, the back of it.
Yeah, for the back of the neck, they still use razors.
Yes.
That's why, because you don't know at one point he's going to get angry. So she tells me, she says, the first time while she was giving me this treatment, I came away, I had black and blue marks from the treatment. Never had it before. Yeah, because I don't know if she's sticking the needle into you, if she's putting it the right way or not putting it the right way.
I have a non-Jewish doctor. Terrible.
So these are in a sense perspectives with which Megillah Esther tells us, Klal Yisrael, pay attention to what's happening in the world around us. Now, Klal Yisrael, at the point that Megillah Esther starts, is in a terrible position. They've been driven out of Eretz Yisrael, the basin which has been destroyed. Nebuchadnezzar is already dead. His son Son,
Yavish the first.
huh?
Yavish the first.
Darius the first. Darius the father. Then second. Here in the town, we change the whole thing. Evel Murdoch.
Oh, evil murder. Yeah.
Evil.
That's what they
Evil murder.
translate to like evil.
Yeah. Murdoch, yeah. That's the Darius's first father. That his father is the first king after and took care of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's son, and the B'tagim tells us that when he wanted to become king, they said, first of all, how do we know that you should be king? You have to. We don't know if Nebuchadnezzar is dead. So he went and dug up his father and showed everybody else. Showed everybody. There, he's dead.
Evil.
Okay. Anyway, he didn't last too long, but then his son became the Yavish, and then it could be that the Yavish the first really Achashverosh. But Klal Yisrael was downtrodden and barely holding on to their sense of self value. The Chanyo had been slave to Nebuchadnezzar. So the leadership of Klal Yisrael was barely, had yet not fully developed any real position, any position of power in Babel. It wasn't until later that it would start the yeshivas of Babel, and then they had to gain representation. However, but so that they gave in and they pretended that they were being part of the celebration, pretending that they were, that they didn't see that Achashverosh was wearing the begotten of the Kohen Gadol and to the Kedem or the Kedem to the Beis Hamikdash, right? They had to pretend they didn't see that. So we understand that their whole stature was, and what could they say? What could they do? They had, nevertheless, because of that, they were chayv clear because they didn't stand up and be strong about what they believed in. Why they didn't stand up and protest and make an issue, and I understand that's why we're not standing out on the streets making protests also. So say Vayikra to a child is very simple. This is what the Torah wants from us. This is what happens when we need to have a kapara to do. This is all the Kohen Gadol has to bring carbon, Kohen Hedger has to bring carbonas, the Eidah has to bring carbonas, the Nasi has to bring a carbon, Yachid has to bring a carbon, and at the end of the Parsha is all what happens if a person can't afford to bring a power. So he should bring a soy, but then bring a soy, he should term. What happens if he can't even afford that? He should bring kamach, dal shavadalim, the poorest of poor, the poorest of the poor. Should bring a yisaron of kamach, and you don't put any oil on it, you don't put any levine into it, you don't spice it up at all. The kohen takes a handful of the carbon oil, throws on his mizbeach, kapara. That's it. Right? So the Gemara tells us that when the Kohen did the Kemitza, it was like the Shechita, the B'mokum Shechita. So he had to have Kavanah when he was doing it, just like the person, the Kohen, when he chefs the carbon, has to shem Baalim, he has to shem Zman, right? It has all the conditions of Pigul, of consistent thinking. Just when he does it. That's what Rashi says. He has to have Kavanah l'shem Shemayim l'shem l'kapar. It's just a handful of flour. How much can the client's mind wander when he's just taking a handful of flour? This much does it. You're doing for the sake of kapara for a very poor person. So I find that whenever we're going through these Parshas, and we can begin with the question that we have asked ourselves: where is our piece of avodah? Where's our strength in what we are? We have emunah. Are we ready to stand up and be strong about who we are, Klal Yisrael? Or do we give in to the political pressure and even the military pressure of our time and not turn to Kodesh Baruch Hu for, and because ultimately that was the Yeshua. The Yeshua came not loy berachah v'loy bezusim. And after Mashiach Hashem came, the Solomon is we have to get up a strong. Means we have to be strong. These are the essence of the core of Sefer Vayikra, and the real underlying lessons of the underlying what we learn about from Megillah Esther. So we have to think which point at which time are we ready to do tshuva? We're ready to ask Hashem. We have to be the point of the just an interesting Shalah HaKodesh. And it's extremely demanding. He says that the Gzera that was leveled against Klal Yisrael, Min Shemayim, it was not annulled, it was delayed, it was pushed off. There will have to come another time where there are those who want to get up and say, so the question that it says like bothered me, could World War II, could the Holocaust have been prevented? What would have been the key? The Klal to know clearly enough that they have to
Spanish Inquisition.
Huh?
Or maybe the Spanish Inquisition.
Mm-hmm. So one of the underlying arguments, which is a little bit hard to avoid, was that there were a few Gedolei Yisrael who were warning Klal Yisrael to leave Europe. But most of the Gedolei said, shouldn't go to Israel, the British are not going to let us in. Go to America, America's not going to let us in. And besides, you can't go to America, America is a trade for Medina. Right? Go to America, Gedenk, Amerikaner Eden, Gedenk Shabbos. I'm Eden in America. Shabbos also Eden since I get to there. Right? But the whole perspective was, Europe is our home. We can, we'll weather this like we weathered World War I. They didn't believe it. Didn't believe that there was a Gzeira Hashmir L'Har It's called Yehudim. So where were they? So you have to say it's Hester upon them. Even the Gedolei Yisrael suffered from Hester upon them.
They were blind.
Are we any better?
I didn't think the Nazis were so terrible. Only had to run for his life.
That's right.
You didn't have to run, they threw him out.
Yeah.
They regret it.
Well, they did?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought
They
he
sent
run
him
for his life.
Huh?
Einstein was sent with shit off. The Germans threw him out.
Who?
Einstein.
No, they wanted him.
It's not. They wanted him. And I mean, there were a few people running around Europe saying, "The Jews, get out of Europe." Nobody wanted to believe him. Jabotinsky, this whole cover. We're telling Jews, get out of Europe while you can.
Does that mean the Gedolei Yisrael also had a lack of protection?
Not lack of protection. There was Hester upon them. They couldn't see what was happening.
So the Manhigei Yisrael don't know. Then how is everyone else supposed to know?
Yeah.
I mean, you had big doilim. So they
That's right.
didn't
But he said Hester upon Hashem blocked their eyes.
Yeah.
It was a
So the question was, where was the Nakuda where was the Mordecai and Esther in that period of time between World War I and World War II? Was there a Shasa Kosher when it could have been turned around? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. It's sort of with hindsight. That's an awesome question. But nevertheless, the Torah is telling Klal pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening, not just on the surface, but below the surface of where are we in our Avodas Hashem. And with that, we'll be zecher, because the book will open up our eyes, we'll see what our tachlis is, and we'll be zecher to this time without having to have excuses to have a Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mehera b'minyan.
The October 7th was open in a way.
Yeah,
It makes no sense.
October 7th was an eye-opener for all of Klal Yisrael.
Makes no sense.
And for a little while, it opened the eyes of the nations of the world, and now it's all.
No, it was an eye opener for the Shalom Shabbos. Shalom Shabbos. No, you want to make peace with these people? These people want to kill you.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Have a great Shabbos. Yaakov, Yehuda, take care. Have a great Shabbos. And if Sam is there also.
A lot of soldiers.